So, today I want to talk to you about the entrepreneur burnout cycle and, most importantly, how to escape it for good. So, the goal today is to help you be able to identify where it is that you may potentially see yourself in this cycle and help you be able to just escape that permanently. Now, what I see a lot of clients doing when they come work with me is they say, I'm going to slow down when I hit this one goal, right? If you tell yourself, right, oh, I'm going to slow down after I finish this next project. The problem is that that project never ends. And what happens is you end up snapping at your spouse, you end up gaining weight, lying awake in bed thinking, is this really what I built this for? Ladies and gentlemen, that is not ambition. What that is, it's burnout. Simply put, it's burnout. And there's a cycle to it that nobody's talking about until right now. And so, what I want to do is explain to you the burnout cycle and help you understand what I have termed as the 5-stage entrepreneur's burnout cycle. Now, why is it that I'm so intimately familiar with this? Is because I've lived it. And in full transparency, I'm a coach. I help entrepreneurs. I have my own business, and there are times when I find myself going into a phase of the cycle. And so, one of the biggest things that I can give you as a coach is that I want to help you become your own best coach. When you can start to identify the things in your life that are starting to cause little problems, they're these little fires that light up. I want to help you take a fire extinguisher to put those fires out before it engulfs everything into flames. The problem with most of us is that we don't do anything until it's too late, and I want to help you be able to avoid it. Because one of the key things that my coaching clients will tell you that I am constantly reinforcing for them is the notion of self-awareness. When you can become self aware, that's when you can start to become your own best coach. And it's almost like I'm sitting there, like on your shoulder, talking to you, saying, hey, this is what I talked about, right? Do you recognize this is happening? And so we're going to do that today. So, first thing is stage one of the entrepreneur's burnout cycle, and that is the pressure high. This is where you are fueled by adrenaline, you're fueled by big goals, by dopamine hits. And what I find the common lie that we as entrepreneurs tell ourselves is, I do my best work under pressure. Have you ever said that to yourself? I know that I have. When I look at the patterns of when I've gotten things done all the way back to elementary school, right? Were you one of those kids who the day before the science fair were coming up with a science project that you had to do? And, maybe your mom had to take you to the grocery store to go buy some baking soda and vinegar to create that volcano. I don't know. Maybe you're not like that, but I will tell you in full transparency, I was. I was the kid who was coming up with this project that they gave me 2 months to do, and I was doing it the night before. Or maybe it was a big term paper that had to be turned in, and you had 10 weeks to work on it. And guess what? You're working on it the night before, because guess what? I do my best work under pressure. Now, I'm not saying that you don't do good work under pressure. Many of us that fit this pattern have gotten really darn good at putting out things at 80% effort, 70% effort, maybe sometimes even 60% effort, that are pretty awesome, knock people's socks off, and you do them last minute. But what if I told you that you would be able to also put in a great effort? 80% effort, 90% effort, maybe even 100% for certain things, but not have it under pressure. That is where real freedom lies. Stage two is overcommitment. So we start off at stage one, the pressure high. Step two, we move over to overcommitment. And this is where, now that you are abiding by that lie that you do your best work under pressure, next is you start to overcommit. So you say yes to absolutely everything. You say yes to every single client that comes across, every single product launch idea that you get, you go and you do it. Or every new idea that you end up, pops into your head, you end up executing on it. And the problem when you say yes to everything and you don't say no to things is then you can't say yes to the things that really matter in life. So your personal time starts disappearing, becomes non-existent. You begin ignoring delegation because you're like, oh no, I have to do this and I have to do it right away. So you just take it on yourself. And so when you overcommit and you say yes to absolutely everything, now you've got a serious problem, because now you've said yes to way too many things. You're obligated to too much, and life gets really tough at that point. Stage three. So we got the pressure high, stage one, stage two is overcommitment, stage three is suppressed signals. And this right here is the biggie I want everybody paying attention to. Okay. When you have suppressed signals, your body and your brain start giving you warning signs. So, what are some of the signs that I recognize in myself? Well, it's being tired, right? Feeling just fatigued in general. Maybe you're just not as excited to do the things today that you used to be excited about doing because your body is just like, I'm worn out, boss. I'm really tired. You start getting irritable with people that you love. And sometimes, oftentimes, you get irritable with the people that mean the most in your life, right? My wife is the nearest, dearest person to me. And I end up, when I start getting irritable, I'm start snapping at her. She doesn't deserve that. She wasn't the one who decided to start a business. She wasn't the one that decided that I take on too many things and say yes. And so as a result of that, you start getting irritable. That's a warning sign. You start snapping at your kids. You start, yelling at the dog. Those are some signs of suppressed signals. Brain fog, lack of focus, being pulled to starting to scroll more so on social media. All these are signs of that you're suppressing these warning signs. And so what do you end up doing is you start to override them with caffeine, right? So I remember like at my worst, I was drinking several cups of coffee a day plus energy drinks, and that's no good. For you, maybe it's a combination of caffeine, nicotine, tobacco, and other stimulants. Maybe it's even hard drugs. I've had many clients who come in, they admit, they say, hey, I'm struggling with substance abuse, things like cocaine, methamphetamines, or amphetamines, just to keep them going on a daily basis. That's not the way that you want to live. And, I'm a very non judgmental ear, but I will tell you, if you're doing cocaine to keep yourself going or keep yourself focused, I'm going to tell you that is not going to serve you long term. Number one, it's a really expensive habit. I've had clients of mine, share with me that they've spent $7,000 a month, $10,000 a month on a cocaine habit. Ladies and gentlemen, you do not want to function off of that. Not to mention the legal ramifications of buying illegal drugs. That would be pretty life altering. And also what it's doing for your heart. And like cocaine is terrible for your heart. And so we don't want that for you. Okay. So if you're relying on substances, we want to make sure that we look at this as a suppressed signal that your body is telling you it can't go further, but you're just pushing it with chemicals. There's a way to fix that, and we're going to help you do that. Next is willpower or guilt, right? Willpower is a muscle. There's only so much you can do until you finally just let go and say, I don't care anymore. And we want to try to help you avoid that at all costs. So making sure you're paying attention to your body is super important about this. And next, stage 4 is the emotional crash. Your motivation just tanks, right? You're like, you know what? Screw all this. I just don't want to do any of it. So that is one thing where you just like put your hands up and say, nah, forget it. I'm done with this. Your confidence begins to fade and isolation starts to creep in because when we feel like we can't keep up with this certain image, what typically happens is we will retreat back, we'll isolate from those people around us, and then we just kind of wallow in our own misery. And this is no good. This is a very dark place to be in. I know it's dark because I've lived through it. And I am so grateful to God that I got through that dark place. And I want to make sure if you're starting to creep into there, that we turn you right back around because isolation is no good for anybody. And as a result of that, when you have that emotional crash stage of entrepreneur burnout, your productivity drops. And so when your productivity drops, that now brings in a whole other thing, which is shame, right? Shame going, oh gosh, I'm not being productive. I'm so frustrated. This all is terrible. But then the shame, what it does, is it makes you push harder, which really doesn't serve you either, right? There's some things you need to be changing, not doing more of. And so now when that productivity drops and shame comes in, now you push harder and it's just pushing you closer to burnout. And then the final stage of stage 5, right? Numb or explode. You either completely shut down, so you just numb yourself, and it's usually with drugs, alcohol, sex, pornography, risky behaviors, or just doom scrolling all day on Instagram, or you blow up and you explode and you create even more chaos, right? This is where I've seen entrepreneurs just straight up quit. I've seen them blow up their teams, right? And they just fire everybody and say, to heck with all of this, or they have a mental breakdown. And those are all things that we want to try to avoid for you. And so, what happens here on this stage of being numbed or exploding? You take a break, then you start to feel guilty, and then the cycle starts back all over again, where you go, okay, and you just fueled by the pressure high. I do my best work under pressure. You tell yourself that lie, you overcommit, you suppress signals, you have the emotional crash, and then you numb out or you explode again. And it's just this vicious cycle. And so what I want to help you identify are these lies that are keeping you stuck, right? I want to help you expose those hidden beliefs that feed that burnout cycle, where you say to yourself, if I slow down, everything's going to fall apart. Or you say, no one can do it as well as I can. Or you say to yourself, a major lie, this is just the cost of success. I'm just paying my dues. Or rest is for the weak or unmotivated. Folks, those are not facts. Those are straight up lies. They're survival strategies that people throw out there, and they are silently sabotaging your freedom, and we want to help you get rid of that. So this next part here is my 3-part escape and rebuild framework. So number 1 is we have to get radically honest by number 1, acknowledging the cost. What is the cost? And be brutally honest with yourself. What is burnout costing you right now in your marriage, in your health, in your family, and in your purpose? What's the cost? And when you can radically acknowledge that, that is where things can start to change. So I want you to think about it, scale of 1 to 10, 1 being awful, on the brink of divorce, or 10 ecstatic and everything's amazing. Where are you with your marriage? Where are you with your health? Where are you with your family and in your purpose? Give yourself a rating of, 1 to 10. And if you don't have at least 7s, 8s, 9s, and 10s for those categories, ladies and gentlemen, you have an issue that we really need to make sure to address. Or if you have maybe 9s in three areas, but you've got a low number in one of them, that still means we need to pay attention. Number 2, the second step here is we have to redesign the operating system. So what it is, we want to replace stress-fueled systems with sovereign systems. What that means is creating a calendar that matches your priorities. It means helping you establish what priorities really matter to you, making sure that you're delegating appropriately, and using tools like AI to help support you in redesigning the way that you're doing things. And then the third step is to rebuild self-trust through boundaries. Because the problem that all of us face who've dealt with this has been that we lose trust in ourselves, because we'll watch a video like this and we say, this is it, I'm changing, I'm never going back to that old person. And then next thing you know, you're reaching for the bottle of bourbon because you are burnt out again. And so what happens there is your self-trust begins to diminish. And we want to make sure we rebuild self-trust. And so we rebuild self-trust via accountability, right? Having somebody that you deeply don't want to disappoint, but that's also a cheerleader with you and helping you as you're going through this to make sure you're doing those things necessary. And somebody who's a sounding board who can be an outside set of eyes that tells you, you know what? You're okay to be frustrated about this, but this is what we can do to fix it. And that's what I do as a coach. So I want you to learn to say no, learn to unplug, learn to delegate without guilt, right? Burnout is not solved by just taking a bath, right? Like, okay, I just need a bath with Epsom salts. That's going to help me with my burnout. No, ladies and gentlemen, it is solved by creating boundaries and creating a better business model. And that's what we need to do. So I'll tell you my story of where I was in my early 20s to really my early 30s. It was a long stretch of time where I was working myself, no exaggeration, working myself to death. I was working 60 and 70-hour work weeks, burning the candle at both ends. And quite frankly, I was making some good money at some points of time here. But what happened was it just led me straight to burnout because I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't taking care of my body. I wasn't treating my body like a pro athlete would. And I just burned out mentally and physically to a point where I just said, forget it. And what did I do? I melted down. I physically and mentally melted down. I shut down my business and said, you know what? Maybe entrepreneurship isn't meant for me. So I walked away from the business that I had spent hundreds of thousands of dollars building that generated millions of dollars and just shut it down completely. And I thought that was going to bring me happiness, but instead I started working a job and was very unhappy as I was working because I knew that I was called for more. I knew that I was meant for more, and it became very frustrating. And so then, while working a job, I started rebuilding another business and started building a few businesses. And it wasn't until I got a coach that I started to finally figure out what systems I could put in place to be able to get out of the mess that I was in. So, what I did when I hired a coach, first I worked with Early to Rise and Craig Ballantyne's team at Early to Rise. Hired a coach, and in our first coaching call, I identified 9 hours a week that I could cut out. So I immediately went, hired a virtual assistant who could take on some of these tasks that I was doing myself. Eventually, I was saving 13 hours a week, then eventually 20 hours a week that I was able to save by being able to delegate certain things. One of the tools that I was taught that I teach in some of my content is the ADE formula. That comes straight from Craig Ballantyne. What can you automate? What can you delegate? What can you eliminate? And having that outside set of eyes was so helpful for me in order to be able to figure out what it was that I could take off of my plate. That simple system was a major key for me. For some of you, it's going to involve maybe letting go of somebody on your team. Maybe somebody's been on your team that's created a lot of toxicity, created a lot of stress for you, and you just have to have the right person tell you that person needs to go. So, whatever it is that you need to identify and fix, your coach, myself, can help you identify what it is that we need to tweak and adjust in your current business systems in order to set you up for success. So if this sounds like you right now and you're struggling with this in your business, what I want you to do is I want you to click the link down below in the comments, book a strategy call with me. And what we're going to do is we're going to do just a free coaching call. I'm going to help you assess what's going on in your business, and then we're going to take a look at what it is that you can be doing to improve and see if coaching makes sense for you. It doesn't make sense for everybody. I don't want to waste your time. I know you don't want to waste my time. So we'll just have a brief call, figure out whether coaching makes sense for you. And if it does, we'll have some action steps to go from there so that you can know full well what coaching would look like for you and how we could implement these systems into your business. Ladies and gentlemen, you cannot outrun burnout with another productivity hack. You need a brand new way to operate, and that is what we're going to do for you. Now, if this was helpful for you, I want you to go to galel.com and I want you to get on my email list so you can get my coaching direct to your inbox and stay in touch with me. I would love to work with you if you're an entrepreneur who is looking just for another way to work. Less stress, more happiness, more fulfillment. We'll do that together. Have a great day, and thanks for watching.